March 27, 2025. Pike Road, Alabama. The town was still. A quiet Thursday night. Families settled in behind locked doors. Streetlights buzzed faintly overhead. In a neighborhood just beyond the main road, a small house stood calm and unremarkable. No signs of danger. No sounds of struggle. Just the hush of routine. Inside that home was a young woman, 21 years old. Her name, Jenia Grimes. A student at Alabama State University. A criminal justice major. A dancer on the Honeybees team. A mother to a 9-month-old son. And if things had gone as planned, she would have been a graduate by August. Maybe even a lawyer one day. She had plans. She had drive. And she had love, at least that's how it looked from the outside. But by the end of that night, Jenia Grimes would be shot. Left critically injured. And by the time she arrived at the hospital, the doctors couldn't save her. The Montgomery County Sheriff's Office was quick to respond. They called it a domestic situation. They said the injuries were critical. They did not confirm the identity of the person involved. Not at first. But they already had questions. One man was there when it happened, her boyfriend, the father of her child. His name, Rogers McLeod Jr. At first, it might have looked like an accident. A moment of confusion. A weapon discharged. But as investigators began to ask questions as they looked over the scene and listened to the words coming from McLeod's mouth, something didn't fit. They said his story wasn't linking up to the evidence. His version of events didn't match the physical truth. And the more they looked, the more clear it became this wasn't what it seemed. This is the story of Jenia Grimes. A mother. A student. A daughter. And the final hours of her life. What happened inside that home left a child without a mother, a campus in mourning, and a courtroom waiting for answers. Before the headlines. Before the arrest. Before the questions, there was a young woman. Her name was Jenia Grimes. She was 21 years old. A student at Alabama State University. A criminal justice major with a 3.4 GPA. Focused. Driven. The kind of person who didn't just attend class, she showed up prepared, engaged, and determined to build something better than what she'd come from. She wanted to be a lawyer. And not just any kind of lawyer, one who could stand beside women who didn't have the power to stand on their own. That's what she told her professors. That's what she told her friends. Jenia was also part of the Honeybees, ASU's bold, spirited, plus-size dance team. A group known for turning halftime shows into something unforgettable. But more than just a dancer, she was the one who stayed late to help others rehearse. She cheered loudest when someone else got the spotlight. She was a mother. Her son, just 9 months old, was rarely far from her side. Pictures on her phone. Video clips of him laughing. She called him her reason. Balancing motherhood and school isn't easy. But Jenia made it look like it was. Classes in the morning. Diapers at night. Assignments. Team practices. She didn't complain. She didn't pause. She kept going. Her family said she had always been that way. The second oldest of 4 siblings. Protective. Strong. A little stubborn, maybe, but only when she believed in something. And she believed in her future. Friends describe her as magnetic. Not loud, not flashy, but warm. A presence. She could walk into a room and make it feel lighter. She listened more than she talked. She knew how to comfort someone without saying much at all. On social media, she posted pictures of her baby. Selfies from campus. Videos of her dancing. She seemed happy. Focused. The kind of young woman people rooted for. And she was close. So close to her next chapter. Graduation was only 5 months away. August 2025. She had plans to apply for internships. She had already started looking into law schools. The world was opening up. Her son would grow up with a mother who had fought to build something better for them both. That's what everyone thought. But on March 27th, that version of her future ended. And the people who knew Jenia best were left with a different kind of question. Not just what happened, but why? And how something so full of promise could be erased in a matter of minutes. His name was Rogers McLeod Jr. He was 20 years old. Soft-spoken in public. A presence that didn't immediately draw attention. At first glance, there wasn't much to say. No serious criminal record. No spotlight. Just a young man who appeared to be building his life alongside hers. He was Jenia Grimes' boyfriend. The father of her child. The two had known each other since high school. They had shared pictures online, smiles, selfies, birthday posts. It looked like love. Or something close to it. They welcomed a baby boy together. He was born in the summer of 2024. A quiet, wide-eyed child with thick curls and a calm demeanor. He was 9 months old when his mother was taken. To the outside world, Jania and Rogers were young parents figuring it out, doing their best. He was seen on campus occasionally, sometimes pushing a stroller. Other times at small gatherings, standing off to the side. Present, but not always participating. Their social media pages didn't offer much. A few birthday messages. A video here and there. But no glaring signs of conflict. No public arguments. No cryptic posts. Everything seemed ordinary. But ordinary can hide things. And when something breaks, people start remembering moments they hadn't thought twice about before. After the shooting, people began talking. Neighbors. Classmates. A few friends. Small observations became more important. Moments that might have once been brushed off started to take on new weight. Someone remembered a sharp exchange outside a dorm building. Someone else recalled seeing Jania walk out of a room in tears. But no police reports had been filed. No restraining orders. Nothing official. Whatever tension existed between them, it stayed in the shadows. Unspoken. Unreported. Until March 27th. There's always a moment when things change. Sometimes that moment is loud. Sometimes it comes quietly. But in this case, it came with the sound of a gunshot. And the weight of a story no one had expected to tell. March 27th, 2025. A Thursday night in Pike Road, Alabama. There were no warnings. No emergency calls in the hours leading up. No neighbors reporting raised voices. Just the quiet rhythm of evening routines. At 8:30 p.m., the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office received a 911 call. The words were rushed. Confused. Then static. Silence. By 8:40 p.m., deputies arrived at a home on Meriwether Trail. They stepped into a scene that would change everything. Inside, they found Jania Grimes, 21 years old. Shot in the head. She was still breathing, but barely. The air was thick. One child, her 9-month-old son, was in the house. Rogers McLeod Jr., the man she lived with, was there too. Deputies secured the scene. EMS rushed her to the hospital. But the damage was irreversible. Jania was pronounced dead not long after. At the scene, investigators began their work. The firearm was recovered. A handgun. Legal but unregistered to either of them. The initial assumption, an accidental discharge. At least, that's what was said aloud. Rogers McLeod gave a statement. It was brief. He told deputies the gun had gone off. That he hadn't meant to fire it. That he was trying to move it or clean it or set it down. But there was something off. As detectives examined the angle of the shot, the location of blood spatter, and the position of the body, they noticed the pieces weren't fitting together. The version of events he gave didn't match what the room was telling them. The wound's trajectory. The way the gun was found. The distance between the two of them when the gun went off. Investigators took him in for further questioning that night. And even then, something wasn't adding up. The words he used. The details he left out. He had an explanation. But it changed subtly each time he told it. No one else had been in the home. There were no signs of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. There was no struggle, no shattered furniture, no defensive wounds. Just a gun. A young woman on the floor. And a man who said it was an accident. By morning, a different question had taken root. Was it really a mistake? In the hours after the shooting, Rogers McLeod Jr. was questioned. He gave his version of the night. He said it was an accident. That he had no intention to harm Jania. That the gun discharged unexpectedly. But investigators had already started reviewing the scene. They weren't looking for stories. They were looking for facts. And those facts were telling a different version. The first inconsistency was in the location of the wound. Jania had been shot in the head from a downward angle. That detail alone raised questions. If the gun went off accidentally, how did it end up pointed there? Then there was the placement of the firearm. It was recovered on a table several feet from where Jania was found. McLeod claimed he was holding it when it went off. But the distance suggested otherwise. Blood patterns on the floor and wall pointed to a stationary shooting. Not a scuffle. Not a drop. It looked controlled. Clean. And most importantly, there were no signs of a struggle. No overturned furniture. No bruises on McLeod. No defensive wounds on Jania. Nothing that supported a chaotic accident. Forensic technicians began to measure angles, collect samples, and compare trajectory data. Their early findings didn't match the statement McLeod gave. It wasn't just one thing. It was several. Small details that, when placed side by side, exposed cracks. McLeod said he panicked after the gun went off. But a neighbor told police they hadn't heard shouting. There had been no immediate screams. No banging on doors. Just sirens after the 911 call was made. Investigators circled back to McLeod. They pressed him, reworded questions, gave him space to correct his story. But each time, the answers came out slightly different. Eventually, one investigator put it plainly, his statement wasn't linking up to the evidence. At that point, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office turned to a higher authority. They brought in the State Bureau of Investigation, SBI, and alerted the District Attorney's Office. It was no longer just a local case. It was now a case under serious scrutiny. The SBI began an independent review. They re-interviewed witnesses. They ran ballistics. They studied timelines. And slowly, a picture began to emerge. Not an accident, but of something else. 10 days passed. 10 days of silence from authorities. 10 days of unanswered questions. The public waited. Jennia's family grieved. Her son, too young to understand, was held close by relatives. Then on April 6, 2025, a name returned to the headlines. Rogers McLeod Jr. had been arrested. The charge, capital murder. He was booked into the Montgomery County Detention Facility held without bond. The charge wasn't temporary. It wasn't a placeholder. It was the most serious charge the state could bring. In Alabama, capital murder is reserved for the gravest acts of violence. It applies when the victim is a child, or a police officer, or when a murder occurs during another felony. But it also applies in cases of domestic violence when the killing is seen as intentional, deliberate, and personal. The district attorney's office had reviewed the evidence, the inconsistencies, the forensic data, the lack of forced entry, the changing statements, and they had made their decision. This wasn't being treated as negligence. This wasn't involuntary manslaughter. It was murder. News of the arrest spread fast. At Alabama State University, students gathered quietly at the campus memorial. Messages poured in from classmates, professors, former teammates on the honeybees. She had danced there, studied there, dreamed there. Now her picture stood next to flickering candles. Her family issued a short statement through a local pastor. They thanked the community for its support, and they asked for time, for privacy, for justice. Rogers McLeod Jr. made no public statement. His attorney issued a single line, "We intend to contest the charges." But in that moment, those words hung in the background, because what mattered most was the charge itself. Capital murder in Alabama is punishable by life imprisonment without parole or death. The man once seen holding their baby in Facebook photos was now facing the full weight of the law. As of now, Rogers McLeod Jr. remains behind bars. No bond, no release, no trial date set. The wheels of justice move slowly, especially in capital cases. Prosecutors have formally filed the charge, capital murder. The defense has entered a plea of not guilty, and the state has begun the process of building its case. Forensic reports, witness testimony, digital records, surveillance, phone logs. Every detail from the night of March 27th is under review. The Alabama State Bureau of Investigation continues to support the case, working alongside the district attorney's office. They've said little publicly, but their silence speaks volumes. Right now, the case is in pretrial proceedings. Motions, hearings, evidence challenges. These steps will take months, maybe more. And behind the scenes, both sides are preparing for the long road ahead. If the case goes to trial, McLeod could face life without parole, or the death penalty. In Alabama, either is on the table under capital murder. But trials are never guaranteed. There could be a plea, or an unexpected development. The only certainty now is uncertainty. Meanwhile, the media remains quietly watchful. Local coverage spikes with each court date. But nationally, attention has faded. The headlines have moved on. But the people closest to Jenia Grimes haven't. Her family still waits. Her classmates still remember. Her son will grow up with stories. And as the legal process grinds forward, one question remains at the center of it all. What really happened that night in Pike Road, Alabama? Jenia Grimes was a mother, a scholar, a dancer, and a young woman preparing to graduate. Her life was filled with potential. Her voice, full of purpose. Her story cut short. What happened on that March night in Pike Road didn't just end one life. It changed many. Her family, her child, her community. A young man sits in jail, charged with capital murder. The justice system moves forward, slowly and deliberately. But the hole left behind remains. This story isn't finished. Not yet. The questions haven't all been answered. The truth still waits for its full telling. And as it does, the people left behind are trying to hold on to what matters. Memory, accountability, and the hope that justice, real justice, will be served. So as we close this chapter for now, remember Genia not just for how her life ended, but for everything she still should have had a chance to become. If this story moved you, if it made you pause, even for a moment, we ask that you don't walk away quietly. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. We tell real stories that matter, stories that deserve to be remembered. Your support helps us continue. Thank you for watching. And thank you for remembering Genia Grimes.